There's a guy named Douglas McMillan who was a minister, and one day he got on a train with a friend of his who's a shepherd. And that shepherd friend of his had just sold a bunch of his lambs 3 weeks ago. And as the train was pulling out of the station, his shepherd friend looked out, and there was a flock of sheep a good distance away that his friend, the shepherd, looked out there and said, "Hey, look, there's 4 of my lambs that I just sold." Which is kind of like, whoa, that's crazy. But that is the life of a shepherd. And the minister, just not to confuse the story, I don't want to tell you, he actually used to be a shepherd also. But he was like, yeah, I don't have any doubt that my friend looked out there at this distant flock and recognized 4 of those sheep that had just been bought from him 3 weeks ago. Yeah, those are my sheep. And that is the mark of a good shepherd. They know their sheep. There is this intimate relationship between a shepherd and a sheep. And that's why in John chapter 10, Jesus is using this analogy because it's so well known. Shepherds know their sheep, and the sheep know the voice of their shepherd. It is this intimate relationship. So we're in the last week of a series in John chapter 10, the Gospel of John, where Jesus shares a parable, which is a story with a spiritual point, or a metaphor, an allegory, whatever you want to call this, describing himself as the Good Shepherd. John 10 through 11, he says this: "The thief comes only to steal, kill, and destroy. I have come that they, my sheep, may have life and have it to the full." Or to have it in another valid English translation, to have life abundant. And so then he goes on in the next verse and he says what I just mentioned a moment ago: "I am the good shepherd." Now, when he says he's the good shepherd, he doesn't just mean good as in the opposite of bad, like Run DMC, not bad meaning bad, but bad meaning good. That isn't just what he's saying. That's valid, true, too, of course. But what good means in this context is beautiful, lovely, and ultimately the model, not like the beautiful model, but like the model example of a leader, a shepherd. Because in ancient Israel, for example, kings, leaders were often called shepherds. Spiritual leaders were called shepherds. So he's saying, I am the model shepherd. I am the shepherd that all other shepherds, all other leaders should be compared to. I am the good shepherd. And so in this picture drawn by Jesus in John 10, it just continues to pull out this close personal bond between a shepherd and his sheep. And the shepherd, what I explained the last couple weeks, would have his sheep stay in a fold or a pen, at the nighttime. And that would be 4 walls, rough stone walls with one opening, one entrance. And that's where the sheep would sleep at night. And then he would lead them out in the morning of that pen or that fold so that they could go out and graze in the world. And he would lead them around, and they would eat everywhere they went, and they would graze. And out in the world, there are wolves, and wolves will kill and eat defenseless sheep. So the one shepherd, as he calls them out of the fold and he takes them out in the world, the sheep have no protection other than the shepherd. He's their only protection. So they have to keep close to him, and as long as they stay close to the shepherd, everything is okay. They wander away from the shepherd, they are immediately in danger. And so why does a shepherd need to know his sheep the way that shepherd did in my intro story? That I could pick them out of a flock and be like, hey, those were my lambs. Why? Well, the reason a shepherd has to know his sheep so well isn't a compliment to us, because sheep are dumb. Okay, it isn't a compliment, okay? But it is the truth. Like, everyone knows that knows sheep. They're dumb, they're slow moving, they're helpless, they're weak, they're defenseless. They're inclined toward getting in trouble and into danger. Sheep are inclined to it. Okay? This is why the analogy works, all right? They're prone to wander, John Wesley said. They have to be searched for. They have to be brought back to the flock or to the fold. And so the mark of a good shepherd is that he defends. He chases down. He rescues his sheep, even at the risk of his own life. He stands between his sheep and wolves to protect them. And so at a disregard for his own safety and for the well-being of the sheep, he defends and protects and cares for his sheep. So when you think about a sheep, man, a shepherd is everything to them. Like when you unpack the whole analogy, they're the sheep's leader and guide. He is the physician and veterinarian. He is the protector. He's everything to his sheep. So what is Jesus teaching us through this good shepherd metaphor? Well, first, Jesus is alluding to one of the most famous passages in the Old Testament written by David that I just read, Psalm 23. You cannot miss, that's what Jesus is saying. He is saying, okay, you know Psalm 23, David, who wrote this, who became a king in Israel, he said, the Lord is my shepherd. I am that shepherd. I am the good shepherd. Don't miss that he's saying that clearly. So when Jesus says, I am the good shepherd, he's saying, I am God. He's saying, I am the one who gives Zoe life. That's what he's saying in this passage is, I've come that they, my sheep, might have life to the full, abundant life. And Zoe is the Greek word for the word he uses, life. It is divine life, the kind of life that God himself has used to create the universe that only God himself can give. He's saying, I am that good shepherd that David was talking about. I'm God. So Jesus, the good shepherd, is our God and our leader if we follow Jesus. And so if you read Psalm 23 about the Lord being, it's about the Lord being everything to David. You know, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Or other versions, valid English versions, I lack nothing. Like I have all that I need because my God is my everything. He's my leader, my guide, my physician, my veterinary. He's my protector. He's all that. That's what David is saying in Psalm 23. God is my everything. He is my shepherd. And an interesting thing about shepherds are they don't drive like you do cattle. They lead. And their sheep follow them. They don't get behind the sheep and they get them going or moving and you're like clapping at them, whatever. They lead and their sheep follow. And that's interesting because in John 10:3, in this passage, Jesus says the good shepherd calls his own sheep by name and then leads them out of that sheep pen. And he leads them and they follow. So he is that model leader, that beautiful leader. And one thing you'll notice is that Jesus said an awful lot in his ministry, in the Gospels, follow me. It's a great analogy because Jesus is constantly saying, follow me. I will lead, but you follow me. Don't wander away or you'll be in danger. Follow me. Come, follow me. And the idea of following Jesus is that we're going on a journey with Jesus. We're going somewhere. He's leading us out into this dangerous world. He's like, come learn from me, but he doesn't give us a curriculum. He's like, follow me. He's like, come, follow me, and I'm on a journey. We're moving toward goals together. We're going somewhere. So the idea is that the Good Shepherd invites everyone to follow him on a journey out into a dangerous world within a flock that is pursuing him. That's the analogy. The Good Shepherd is not stationary. The Good Shepherd isn't just sitting there saying, hey, you just come sit with me. Just believe in me. Believe that I'm next to you. He's like, no, belief means follow me. Walk behind me. Come with me out into the danger. But as long as you're within my view, you are safe. I will protect you. You are covered by my safety. And so when we're following Jesus, we are moving too. We are moving too. We're on an adventure into life abundant. And so where is he taking us? Where's the shepherd? If he's moving, if he's not stationary, where is he taking us? We'll see. Who knows? Like that's the whole thing is like, I don't get to tell Jesus, hey, take me here. He's like, follow me. And I'm like, yes, sir. Here we go. Let's do this thing. I'm going. Let's go. Where are we going? Who knows? That's what's exciting about it. It's scary as crap, but it's exciting too. Like, where are you going to take me, Jesus? When I decided to follow Jesus, I was 15. Granted, of course, I got a lot of life ahead of me. I don't know much, but I think I know everything. And I'm 15. But what I did know is when I read about Jesus in the Gospels, this is exciting. This is a journey. This is risk. This is faith of going places with Jesus. And I don't get to call the shots. I just follow him. The last thing in my mind when I was 15 years old was that I wanted to be the typical church person, you know? Like the typical church person is like what you picture is the stereotype. They're sitting and they're following a stationary Jesus. Man, a 15-year-old boy full of you-know-what and vinegar wanted nothing to do with that, man. Like, I want to do something. I want to move. And so I didn't want to be a typical church person who just sat there, who just didn't grow, who didn't serve, who didn't give sacrificially, who griped about things that weren't perfect in the church building, who didn't invest in others, who didn't care about lost, broken people who were far from the shepherd. I didn't want to follow a stationary shepherd. And I also, when I grew up and was following Jesus for years, I never wanted to start a church full of stationary people following a stationary Jesus. I was like, man, how cool would it be to start a church where there was movement implied momentum, where there was like, we're going somewhere, we're following Jesus. There's a preacher named Mike Breaux, he's a great preacher. He was complaining about how he's like, I just don't understand how people can just do all the same crap all their lives and think this is what life is about and it's fulfillment. It's what God intended for us. Just doing our little hobbies and doing our little things and just doing our stuff. And this is the way he puts it. He explains it this way. He says, you get up at the same old time, walk into the same old bathroom and look at the same old face in the same old mirror. You get in the same old shower, dry off with the same old towel, and put on the same old clothes. You walk down the same old kitchen, you get in the same old bowl, eat the same old cereal, drink the same old coffee, kiss the same old wife goodbye. I didn't say that. He said that. He said, okay. His words, not mine. Keeping and kissing the same spouse all of your life is highly encouraged and commanded by God, okay? So this is what he's saying here. Then he said this. He said, you drive the same old car down the same old street to the same old job. You laugh at the same old jokes from the same old boss. He tells them the same old way. You clock out at the same old time. You get back in the same old car. You drive down the same old street. Pull into the same old garage. Hug the same old kids. Walk into the same old kitchen and sit down to eat the same old dinner. Finally, Mike said this. You sit down at the same old recliner. You watch the same old TV show. You fall asleep in the same old chair. You have to get up and crawl into the same old bed. You ask the same old wife the same old question. You get the same old answer. You roll over. Set the same old, you are not a quick bunch. Set the same old alarm clock, get up the next day, and you do it all again. Now, I don't know what his point was, but my point is this. Aren't you tired of doing the same old stuff? Like, even if you're like someone who like, I love Jesus, I believe in Jesus, are you on the journey with Jesus? Are you tired of the same old stuff? And then you get to the end of life and be like, man, what did I accomplish for God that matters? What did I accomplish that's going to last for an eternity, even after our sun burns up and this world is gone and no one remembers me? Did I do some eternal things that mattered for the kingdom of God? Like, well, I don't want to just be. Now, here's the deal. Like, some people think the answer to that is, and I know because people tell me stuff like this after the sermon. Oh, you know, I got about that is get some new clothes, get a new job, and a new spouse. Oh, my gosh. You must have heard just that illustration. But no, it's not about getting new stuff. In fact, being faithful to some routines is healthy, it's godly, it's good. Okay? A lot of stuff in my life is really boring stuff that's good. Meaning I do it over and I do it over and over and over again. I read the same old Bible every morning. I do the same old workouts. I work on the same old budget. I'll never stop dating and delighting in the wife of my youth. There are things that God's like, those are good, healthy, godly things. But it's not difficult to understand why some people feel a deep disillusionment with their life that's not life abundant. And it causes them to wonder, is this all there is? Is this what I've worked so hard for all these years? There's got to be more, and you are right. Jesus says there is a more life. It's an abundant life. It is life eternal, and I'm the only one who can give it. So to be a follower of Jesus, it means you have to say and live this statement: Jesus is Lord. He is leader. He is my shepherd. I will follow him, and I don't know where we're going, and I don't get to call the shots. The shepherd calls the shots. Chris Vinan says this. He's a guy who, internationally, has a cool accent, but he had a spiritual mentor named Dudley Daniel, who taught all of his disciples, the spiritual disciples, this, and I think this is kind of cool. He says, what you get saved into is far more important than what you get saved out of. Okay, I want you to think about that. Being saved means I'm in a right relationship with God. I'm saved from the consequences of my own selfishness and sins. That is a captivating reminder that Jesus is our Lord and leader and that we have a mission. He's given us a mission. And so you might say, man, I was saved from addiction. Cool. Saved into what? Because addicts are just looking for the next thing to be addicted to, and it might be an upgrade, but what are you saved into? You know? Are just chasing, you're not chasing highs anymore, but what are you chasing? You know, hey, I was saved from constant anger and bitterness in my life. Awesome. What were you saved into? Like, what's the next thing then? Following Jesus on a journey. I was saved from my selfish ambition. I know I was saved from it. Cool. Saved into what? What are you now ambitious for the sake of the kingdom? In the book, Grace-Based Parenting, Dr. Tim Kimmel says this, and I just want to, because I'm a preacher, likes to be real. I never read this book. My wife read it, gave me notes, okay? That's on the real, y'all. But it's one of the things she sent me. I kind of unpacked a meaning from it that I don't think she got. I think, she sent to me, and I was like, oh, let me get in there. But no, she sent this quote to me. It says, "You may not want to hear this, but raising safe Christian kids is a spiritual disaster in the making. Safe Christianity is an oxymoron like jumbo shrimp. Living your life sold out for or godly Steelers fan." That's another one. Just throw that in. Living your life sold out for Jesus Christ has never been a way to enjoy a safe life. It may be a way to enjoy a good life, but not a safe one. That's because Jesus isn't safe, but he's always good. That's kind of stolen from the Chronicles of Narnia, by the way, if you know that. But listen to this image, and this is what I camped out on. I think this is so cool. He says, on the inside of his goodness and grace, he offers a safe haven for a dangerous life to be lived out. That's what a grace-based home can offer too. I think this is a really cool image because it works with parenting, but I'm just going to broaden it for everyone. And that is the idea that when you are in view of the shepherd, when you're like, you are in my flock, you are covered by grace, meaning I've put my faith in you, Jesus, what you've done for me on the cross to take care of my sins, and I'm living in your grace, in your flock, living in his visual, out in a dangerous world. You have a chance. That's a safe haven for you to live a dangerous life, to take some risks and be like, maybe God's telling me to do this, to serve in this way, to love people in this way. And as you do that, sometimes you fail and like, man, that didn't work. I tried to start a nonprofit. That didn't work at all. That's okay. This is a safe haven for a dangerous life, to take risks for the kingdom of God because you're an eye shot of Jesus. The only time you get into real, actual danger is when you wander out of the eyesight of the shepherd. You're like, I'm going to go this direction because we're prone to wander. Then you're in trouble. You're in so much danger. And so this is such a beautiful picture of God's grace and the way we can live within it and take chances. And we can make mistakes, but we're still in God's grace. And so it's not a reckless life, but a life within the safety of his amazing grace to live out an adventure of dangerous faith. So the first thing Jesus is saying is, I'm the good shepherd who is your God and your leader if you have put faith in me to be my sheep. So what adventure are you following him into? Then also, you notice, I mentioned this a couple weeks ago that we'd answer this question this week, but when you read John 10, you're struck by a sudden shift in metaphor. Here's one parable or allegory where Jesus says he is two different things within it. He says, one, I'm the good shepherd, but before that, in verses 7 and 9, he says, very truly, I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. Oh, come on, Jesus, be a better storyteller than this. I mean, this is a mixed metaphor. This is really strange. And by the way, him saying very truly in other language, other English translations, truly, truly, or verily, verily, this is an underscore. What I'm about to tell you is super true, okay? I'm underscoring it. I'm putting it in italics. So this has a really interesting explanation. When the sheep are out there eating the sweet grass, being led by the shepherd and all that, eventually they return to the pen at night. This is where they're in a safe place in the dark. And so what happens is the shepherd stands in the doorway of the sheep pen or the sheepfold, and he does two things. One, he counts the sheep as they come into the fold. That should make you really sleepy, right? Count sheep. He counts the sheep as they come in. I had 32 out there in the dangerous world. Do I got 32? All right, 32 noses. We're good. The other thing he does is he inspects each sheep as they enter the pen because he wants to see, is this sheep thirsty? Let me give this sheep some water. Is this one, this one might be scratched up or wounded by thorns. So let me anoint him with oil, which kind of helps the healing process on his wound. So he heals and cares for them, but he also counts them as they go into sheep. And then once they're counted and cared for, the shepherd lays down across the doorway so that no intruders or wolves can get in without him knowing about it. So literally, the shepherd becomes the gate for the sheep. He lays there in the entrance. So part of being a good shepherd was being the gate for the sheep. Here's the most unpopular point I'll probably make all morning, unless you're just sitting there and need to follow the moving Jesus, is that Jesus says, man, I am the only gate to abundant life. You can seek it in every way imaginable. You won't find it other than through me. You'll only find it in my flock and coming from me. And today's mindset is, man, that's a bold claim by Jesus. In verses 7 and 9, he says, very truly I tell you, I am the gate for the sheep. I am the gate. Whoever enters through me, couldn't be more clear, will be saved. Whoever enters through me. Remember, sheepfolds have one gate. He's like, you come through me or you don't get life and you don't get in and you aren't saved. And the modern mindset, of course, says there are many gates to salvation. The modern mindset says there's all these roads that come up the mountain, but they all end up at the same destination. All the roads end up at the mountaintop. Or your personal truth is valid as long as you are sincere. That's your truth. Live your truth. But over and over in a head-on collision with the modern mindset, Jesus says, no, there's one entrance, one gate, bless you, one door. There is one legitimate road, one legitimate way that leads to life. I am. He says it over and over in so many different ways. And so there's a percentage of people here, for sure, I don't know who or how many, who have come to believe what many people believe, and that is universalism. And that's the idea, the doctrine, really. I mean, call it what it is, the doctrine that emphasizes the universal fatherhood of God and the final salvation of all souls. Basically, in the end, everyone gets in, okay? As long as you're sincere, it doesn't matter what path you take. All the paths are valid. Everyone makes it there at the end. But according to Jesus and his apostles, universalism is a false doctrine. That's not true at all. And it's a contention you have to take up with Jesus. He says it over and over and over. His followers clearly assert every other religion is man-made. Wow, jagged pill. No other faith is valid. All other religions are false gods and demons. I mean, that's just, put it out there. And it's Jesus and his followers who said all this stuff. Now, you might be like, whoa, how intolerant? Yes, unless it's true. Then it's the most compassionate thing you could ever tell anyone. I have one of my mentors as a preacher, first through distance, through listening to him in audio, and then getting to do an internship at his church. Bob Russell, he put it this way. He said, imagine you're a server in an old 2-story restaurant. He said, and imagine a fire breaks out in the kitchen, it gets out of control, and the cook comes out and just says, hey, everyone needs to get out of here and leave, get to safety. It's not safe in here. There's a fire. It's out of control in the kitchen. And as you're retreating out of the restaurant, you realize that there are people on the second floor who haven't gotten that message yet. They don't know about the fire, and they'll be harmed. They might die if you don't run up there and tell them. So you run up there to tell them, and you say, hey, there's a fire down on the main floor. There's only one way out. I know the way. Everyone follow me. People may choose to search for their own way out. People may choose to not believe you that that's the one way. And that's people's choices to do that. But the best thing that you can do is speak the truth in love, because of love, and lead the way. And that's not intolerant. That's compassion. That's to say, I want you to know the truth. And what most people believe, according to Jesus, isn't the truth at all. And so on the surface, universalism looks like this, oh, this is so sweet, this is a compassionate position, but if there's only one gate, as Jesus says there is, then it's not compassionate at all to say anyone and everyone gets in. You want to point to the one gate. You want to point people to the one gate, which is Jesus, and that takes a lot of compassion. It takes a lot of courage because it flies in the face of people who don't believe what Jesus says. And then later, the Good Shepherd says in the same gospel, John 14:6, Jesus said, I am the way, I am the truth, and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. I'm the one gate for the sheep. And that's the Zoe life within Jesus. Like, come to me. It's the only way. I give Zoe life. And the only way to that abundant life through the Father is through me. Look at verse 11. It gets really clear what the story is coming up for Jesus. In verse 11, he says, I am the good shepherd. He says that again. The good shepherd, the model shepherd, lays down his life for the sheep. So he kind of predicts, hey, he does this in many ways, many times. Hey, I'm going to lay down my life for the sheep because a good shepherd protects the sheep. He gets in between the wolves and his sheep, and at his own risk will even lay down his life for the shepherd. Much to your chagrin, last week I talked about the novel The Exorcist. How many of you weren't down with that? You can be honest. It's okay. Not down with that. Okay, we got a bunch of liars. How many of you were down with that? We're good. We're good with that? Okay, cool. So last week I mentioned the fictional novel. I know it was made into a movie too, but it's about a 12-year-old girl named Reagan who's possessed by a demon. And there are two Catholic priests who come to intervene. There's an older kind of mentor one. Then there's a younger one, Father Karras, who's been kind of struggling with his faith up to this point in the story. He shows up at the house, the younger priest, Father Karras, in this iconic picture where he shows up at the house and there's this light shining from Reagan's bedroom window. And this is him showing up to deal with it. Now, I always thought it would be more effective if a non-denominational pastor showed up to deal with the devil, okay? That's what I thought. So last summer, I retook this at the Exorcist house. This is in Georgetown, neighborhood of D.C., near where we used to live. And we took the kids to see sites in D.C., and I was like, oh, just as important as the Washington Monument. All right, we need to go to the Exorcist house. So got this notice they have a privacy gate up because of weirdos like me just standing out there staring at the windows or whatever. What you don't know, maybe not, is that you can't see it here, but there's actually not a wing on this house where the light was coming out. They built that fake wing where her bedroom supposedly is just for the movie because they wanted to get her bedroom window really close to the staircase that's right here. There's this concrete staircase. It used to be called the Hitchcock stairs. Now people just call them the Exorcist stairs. But the point is, at the end of the movie, the demon jumps from Reagan into the younger priest, Father Karras, who then jumps out of that bedroom window and he falls down this long set of stairs that's over here to the next street below, and he lays there dead. And so here's a picture of me and my son Journey at the bottom of the Exorcist stairs. See, there's long stairs, a whole bunch of them or whatever. And then here's a picture of me and my daughter Aslan dead at the bottom of those stairs. And so at the climax of the story, though, which, you know, you've had since the early 1970s to read this, at the climax of the story, before the priest dies, his faith is restored. Like in this chaotic moment where like the older priest is now dead in the room with the girl as the demon. And his faith is restored and he demands that the demon inhabit him instead of young Reagan. And to the author, William Peter Blatty, he wanted to be so clear in his novel, but when the movie was made, he was like, you've got to make this clear at the end of the film. I want people to understand that this death is self-sacrifice. See the big pictures of the good versus evil, God versus the devil, all this kind of stuff. He was like, it has to be so clear. So in the film, Father Karras is screaming and yelling at the devil, and he basically says to the demon inside the girl, take me, come into me, take me. And the demon seizes the opportunity to possess a priest, jumps into the priest, and the priest gathers his thoughts, looks at the bedroom window, runs and jumps out of the bedroom window, sacrificing his life, falling down those stairs and dying so that he can save Reagan from the demon and have it come into him. And for those of you that know the story of Jesus, the Good Shepherd, that sounds really familiar. It's really clear why the author would be like, hey, I don't know what all this guy knows about Christianity or doesn't, but he knows what some of these main storylines and metaphors are that are pulled out of the one ultimate story. And he's like, the victory at the end has to be self-sacrifice. And what's funny is when you get to Jesus, the Good Shepherd, and the cross, it's a pretty chaotic ending. It is people screaming, yelling at Jesus. He's arrested, he's beaten, he's put on a cross. But it's so clear that the Bible and God himself wants to make it clear to us. You've got to make it clear. You've got to see this clearly. This is not a story of a martyr. This is self-sacrifice. And so Jesus says within this passage that we're talking about, he says, no one takes my life from me, but I lay it down on my own accord. This isn't, hey, yeah, the bad guys got to me. I entered my own hostile world that I created. Everyone had rebelled against me, so they killed me. He knew that's how it was all going to go down. But he says, the Good Shepherd lays down his life. I laid it down on my own accord. No one takes it from me. This was voluntary. It was heroic. I laid down my life for my sheep so that you don't have to endure the punishment that you deserve for your rebellion against me. You don't have to pay the price for your sins if you put faith in me. That's why I'm laying down my life for you. So I want you to know, no matter how you feel about yourself, no matter how other people think about you, you are unconditionally loved by that Good Shepherd. He laid down his life for you to give you the opportunity to not pay for your own sins because he wants to pay for them for you. But you have to get out of your seat and follow him. You've got to move with him. And then the last thing, he says this, starting in verse 17. Jesus said, the reason my Father loves me is that I lay down my life only to take it up again. No one takes it from me, but I lay it down of my own accord. I have authority to lay it down and authority to take it up again. This command I received from my Father. This is so powerful. I mean, the last thing is that Jesus, the Good Shepherd, is alive. What he's saying is, I have the authority to take that life up again. Why? Because I have Zoe life. This is the divine life. I have the authority to pick my life up again. And what he means is I will be raised from the dead. And so in week 1, I explained that this Zoe life, the Greek word Zoe, it is the divine life. It means abundant, superior, beyond. It's a more kind of life, but it's the kind of life that is in God himself, that he used to create the world and all of that. And so it's the very life that God the Father and Jesus the Son have. And the immortal God can't die. And so he's like, I will pick up my life again. And one of the coolest verses in the book of Hebrews puts it this way, that Jesus possesses the power of an indestructible life. And guess what that Greek word is right there? You never guess. Zoe. It is the divine life. It is indestructible. And Jesus says, I and only I can offer that to you because I'm the only one that has it. There's nothing else in the world that's going to give you that answer and give you that kind of life. Through me, you can have this eternal, abundant, indestructible life. So the good news is if you follow Jesus out into the danger of the world, you also follow him through death into resurrection. Does that make sense? He has the Zoe life. And my biological life, my bios life, even when that's ended, my Zoe life connected to Jesus continues on. Even after this body is dead and gone, I offer you life, abundant, eternal life here and now, but also in the age to come. That's what abundant life means. It is life of the age to come. And he's like, you get that now and you get that then because I give you an indestructible life. That's what Jesus has. I'll finish with this image. I think it's so cool that Jesus is drawing from Psalm 23. And then in John 10:10, he says, thief comes, steal, kill, and destroy. I've come that you might have life and have it abundantly, or life, have it to the full. I love how that relates to this one little image in Psalm 23 where David says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing, my cup overflows. Like, what a cool picture of abundant life. Like, here's my life, here's my cup, and God has blessed me so much that it's more than I can contain. It's overflowing. That's Zoe life. That's abundant life. That's blessing from God. In the King James for Psalm 23, it says, my cup runneth over. You know, in the New Living Translation, my cup overflows with blessings. Like, man, God has given me breath. He's given me life. He's given me anything that I have. Any good and perfect gift comes from God. And just the concept here of that's life abundant. That's Zoe life. That's the more life that Jesus tells us only he can give us. You can only get it from me. I'm telling you the truth. I'm compassionate. I want you to have it, but you can only get it from me. I'm the one gate. Who comes through me will be saved, but I'm the one gate. But here's also the other part of this. When your cup overflows, you have enough life. You have enough joy. You have enough peace to be a blessing to others. Like, Jesus gives it to us so that our cup will overflow and that we have enough life, abundant life, to say, I can lay down this moment to serve someone. I can lay down this moment to be compassionate to someone. I can lay down this moment to talk to someone, to have coffee with someone. I can lay down because it overflows. That doesn't mean every moment of your life is always going to be, it's always happy, it's always giddy. No, but your cup overflows. So you have the ability to say, I can lay down my life at times for others. I can give to others because I'm so blessed and my cup overflows. How is God calling you to bless others this week? If you follow the Good Shepherd, if your cup overflows, how do you give the way that Jesus gave to others this week? Let's pray.